All right, so this is a video about prompting. So you could use it with LTX-2 or really anything. And this is kind of something that I've been doing for a while for different kinds of searches. And I'll kind of get into that in the end, get into that at the end. But this specifically is going to go over Comfy UI and the prompting for LTX-2. So there's their blog that has the prompting guide. So it has different ways to do it. I actually copied some of these prompts and ran them, and I mean, doesn't look like theirs obviously, but I mean it works okay. I did take some and modify them and just play around with it, but you can kind of see how these are, and they're not too long, right? So So what I did was is I used Grok. Okay, I hadn't noticed the projects. I just always assumed I wouldn't really have anything to do with it, and I've been using what is it called? Anything LLM because I wanted to basically get a bunch of information from websites and be able to query that information to search it better, like RAG, right? Um, but it it has more trouble than it's worth, in my opinion. I mean, I like it and I think it's good software, but it's not the smoothest running stuff when you're trying to do a particular thing and want it to turn out a certain way, right? So, just to get into this, so what I did was I created prompt guidelines as a project. So, you have your regular chat and then you can create a project. So, when you create a project, you give it project instructions and a name, and then you can add files, right? So what I did was, well, actually, you see I had 3 attempts, and this one's my last one, is the one I'm talking about. So I gave it instructions, and what I did was I asked Grok. So first I created a source, right? So the first thing I did was tell Grok to grab this page and make an exhaustive list with examples of the prompt instructions. So, oops. So it did that, and then I copied it and put it into a text file. And then I told it to now browse the web for an exhaustive list of LTX-2 prompts, and I had it do a search, and it was text also. So I asked Grok, I said, okay, compare the 2 lists of texts and tell me if there's any contradictions, because I wanted to see if what it found on the page had a contradiction against what it found on the web. So it came back and said there's none. There's some supplemental stuff, blah blah blah. So I said, okay, merge the 2 documents or the 2 text files, and don't remove any. Just merge it and take out anything that's a duplication. So then it merged it. So I used that and I put it as my source, right? So basically I combined everything from this page and whatever Grok found. And I always use the expert. I just don't see the point of using any of the other things. But I used that to compile this list for my files, and I called it guidelines. And then so I attached that. Then I came in here in this project, and with this files in mind, I told Grok, I said, look, I want to provide some instructions to you that whenever I start typing in this project, I'm giving you my ideas for a text to video clip. And I want you to provide me instructions to provide you to tell you to use this reference document and take the intent. And that's one of the things I kind of found really handy with AI, is saying intent, right? Like, you don't have to use exactly, because if you just do things, sometimes it'll do exactly what you said. but I've had better success with saying my intent. So that way I feel like I'm telling the AI, said, okay, it doesn't have to be word for word what I said or exactly what I said. You have some room to, you know, like you should understand what I mean, and then translate it. And so I told Grok, I said, okay, write it out the way that I intend it, and I want the instructions to tell you to use this source and take whatever information I provide you as a prompt and create me a new prompt based on this guidelines as a reference to build the prompt in the proper way to be used with LTX-2 in its proper formatting. So that's what I had. So I'm providing the files to download that I created in case you don't want to have to go through all that. So speedyfoxai.com. So you could just save as, but if you just click on it, so this is just a text, they're both text files. So this one, you would just copy it, and then you would come over here and instructions, you'd paste it in here and you could see what it says, right? So when the user provides a prompt idea, description, concept, blah, 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 reference the text file that's attached, blah, blah, blah. You know, I mean, it's pretty cool. I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want. And sometimes, and there was sometimes I reiterate things. So I look at what it spit out. It sounds good mostly, but then I was like, okay, let me tweak a little bit. And so then I end up with a final product. And it even has an example down here. And so the text file, so this is, I mean, well, the actual file that Grok gets is it even says combine, and I use the word exhaustive because I basically want to say, okay, you find everything that you can find, because you have to be so specific with the AI stuff, you know? So it put all this stuff together and combined the two sources, and then that's what I use as my file. So this one you could probably just copy paste the instructions, but this one you could just save it as. Maybe you can't. Okay, well, my next video I was going to do how I did this little website on my Proxmox server, but apparently you can't just save as because it wants to save the image. So my bad. So I guess you'll have to copy the text out and then give it this name, LTX-2 full guidelines text. And so then you attach it. And so now when I come in here, so, I mean, you could see like all the different, you know, well, you could see all the different things that I made, right? So some of them didn't work. Like, for example, this clown thing. So we'll go to the top. So this clown. So my idea is, oh, I actually copied another one. It's not a good example. So here Grok screwed up. Yesterday I was having some trouble, so that's not really a good example either. Let's see if I can find one that's okay. So here's what I put. I put this information, and then sometimes it does this little bit here, sometimes it doesn't. Now, it's not perfect, right? When you see spaces, I know that it didn't follow the instructions because there's not, it's the most common information about prompting for this LTX-2 is just one paragraph. So seeing spaces, I know that it was messed up. So I told it to read the instructions, update the provided prompt. So then it did it right. And this wasn't on the first their programming guide page, but it seems to be putting it in all of them. So I'm assuming it got it from somewhere else, and they come out okay. So basically, if you see something wonky or whatever, one other thing that I found is that whenever I have it, and it even does the negative prompt. So the negative prompt, whenever I have this, if I just go here, here's the negative prompt. And so I kind of like that it's making a matching one. That's just something it was doing because that's the information that it found when it put everything together. But sometimes what I find myself doing is saying, like, there was this one, the clown, right? So let me see, it might be in here. It's the wrong one. Oh, there's several of them. So let's see if I have it in here. Okay, here's one. Okay, so it came out with this, and where it says I forget where, something like where he came out of the book. It said something like,
message was cut off. Please paste the text or
"Oh,
describe
my
the
bad."
specific section.
Anyways, there was a part where it said he emerged from the book. Well, when I told it to validate the terms, emerged was not a word that they suggested using, because they do have somewhere on there some preferred wording so the AI can understand it. And so instead of that, it actually said it somewhere. You're right. It says, I should say came out of instead of emerged. So every once in a while, like if you get the wrong results, sometimes, okay, so let me just back up a little bit. So usually what I'll do is I'll write my first one, and then I'll take it and I'll put it in Comfy UI. I'll pop it in there, and then I'll run it. And then based on what it comes out as, I'll say, okay, I didn't like that part, or this was messed up. So I'll just tell it, hey, add this, right? And here the book was malformed, right? So I just tell it, hey, this was jacked up, try it again. So it'll write it again. I'll try it again. I'll tell it some other things. This is where I was like, something's just not working right. So validate the terms using the prompt, matching preferred terms and documentation and documents. And then sometimes it doesn't get what I'm saying. It's like, I don't know if it was just yesterday when it was messing up because Grok was like down for a while, but anyways, this works really well. So I mean, like I can come here, let me do this again. So I could say, I want a guy at PC late in the day in a dorm room doing work. I mean, that's really bad, but so I mean, I just put in my ideas, right? Usually it's a lot more than that, and I try and be as detailed as possible, but it'll use that most of the time. Okay, yeah. So I gasped because I thought this, but so I don't know why it's putting a space here, because I think I'm supposed to put this with it, and then I just take this little gap out. But see, and I don't like that it just started recently doing all these extra words in it, but normally, as you saw before, I only got like this stuff. And then way down here, well, in the past, the negative prompt was down here, so it didn't do it right. Maybe I need to mess with it. But anyways, that's kind of how I do it. And like I said, I tell it, I do several iterations. What's a good one? Oh, the eggs. Your brain on drugs. So a POV view down on an old frying pan, and this was just for memory, right? Like I just typed this out. This is what it came up with, and then I the clowns came out weird, right? So I kept tweaking how the clowns looked. Like first they just came out looking like weird baby dolls. So then I changed how they looked. It did it again. I ran it again, and then I changed the guy's voice talking, and so I just keep going back and forth, back and forth. Now I know this is for this particular LTX-2 prompts, but I use this kind of thing for everything. So like whenever I'm troubleshooting something, I guess this will be like just an extra thing. I tell Grok, like, how when you ask a question to Grok, it sends you out like 10 paragraphs of stuff, and you get stuck, and like if it's steps, you go to like the second step out of like 20, and then you have to say, okay, on step 2 this happened, and then he writes it again, or not it. And what I do is I'll say, I'm gonna, more specifically, I say, I prep him first, say, look, I'm working with Proxmox, Comfy UI, Debian 13. I'm having this issue, and I'm going to provide you this is the problem I'm having. I want you to first, like sometimes Grok will put out like, do this, but I'm like, so I'll tell him specifically it or whatever. First troubleshoot, you tell me what to enter into the command line, and I'll give you the information back. Do one step at a time. For each step, wait for my response before going on to the next step. And will just go do this, and then I'll copy the result and put it in there. And then, it works so nice. Like, it's really cool, but that's not really related to this, but it is something that I've been doing recently to be able to get things working, because so much stuff doesn't work. But that's pretty much it. Like, you could use this type of setup with anything, right? Like, so it's the projects, right? So you can name the project. So you could do one for like computer troubleshooting. You could do one for, researching something, and you could also have, I don't know if Grok has it. Let me use one of these bad ones that I had. I was using Perplexity before, and it didn't work out very well. Perplexity, I think, is better for like researching like other things, because it just didn't work out well. With Perplexity though, you can actually attach websites. So that is kind of one perk that Perplexity has that Grok doesn't, is when I attempted a kind of a similar setup to this over there on Perplexity, I linked websites like this one, and then like Hugging Face and things like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or would like me to give more details on anything, let me know. Thanks.